Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Smash University. Of course, we got another round of Coach's Corner. I'm here with Ramses, Tony, and of course, we have a special guest. We got Peabnut here. So, obviously, congratulations, Peeb, to your run at Riptide, second place. Really good stuff. And we kind of wanted to talk Mega Man. I think Mega Man is a strong character, but has it's weird because Mega Man has had so many different ups and downs throughout the history, right? Obviously the character was added in Smash Four. Kameme was really the first one to make a splash with the character, right? At Evo, I believe. So we saw the character have kind of a rise in Smash Four. Had a good matchup against Diddy, which was a really big deal, but lost other characters like Fox, which was also a big deal. You don't want to lose that character, really popular, yada yada, right? And Peeb, I know you've been playing since Smash Four. How's your experiences like thinking back on Smash Four and thinking how strong the character was then, and comparing it to Ultimate, would do you think Ultimate Mega Man is stronger than Smash Four Mega Man?
hmm So first of all, thank you for having me. Hi, hello everyone. Um, when it comes to Mega Man's history and comparison between Smash 4 and Ultimate, um, I think he's more well-rounded in Ultimate for sure. In Smash 4, he did have his iconic footstool infinites. Um, I forget exactly how the input went, but you couldn't tech footstools in that game. So once you jab block someone, you can just set up another Metal Blade into a footstool, into repeat, so on and so forth. In this game, you can tech footstools, but he still has footstool combos or tech chases if they do tech it. Um, and in addition, he also has like some other tools that I would say were like massively upgraded from Smash 4. So like the first one that comes to mind is Leaf Shield, which in Smash 4 was like it came out frame 50 something. Now it comes out frame 9, and you can use it just whenever, really. Especially if you have a Metal Blade in hand, to like cancel the move, which is just a glitch straight up that they never patched out. Um, and I like that well-roundedness that Ultimate has. I feel more powerful in Ultimate for sure.
Nice, nice. And Ramses and Tony, what are your thoughts on Mega Man in general? I guess I can just start real quick. I think it's so hard because for me he teeters between like top 20, top 30, right? It's really hard for me to because like my top tier is top 20, but I I feel like he's a top tier. I feel like he's top 20, but I also feel like there's specific matchups that are like really hard for him, and like the bottom side of my top 20 is kind of where it's like, okay, I don't know if you can solo main, or it's really really rough to solo main, right? It's just kind of like that. So that's like the general area where I feel like Mega Man is. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
Um, I'm super conflicted over Mega Man because I feel like to me his main flaw is that his reward is kind of subpar compared to a lot of other characters. He doesn't really have like crazy combos off of a hit. He doesn't really have accessible kill power to the degree of a character like Roy or even Aegis. What he does have though is, arguably one of the best mid ranges in the game, right? Pellets are just a weird in between where it's kind of like a bit of a zoning tool, but more than anything, just like a mid range control tool. And in a game that is, by all means, the meta revolves around mid range almost entirely. And having a character that's really strong at that range is just really good. But you can hit your pellets 5 times, and then Roy jump in nairs once. It slices through them, and does more than you did in those one interactions. I think what we're kind of seeing, and what I'm seeing from Peabnut personally, and he can correct me if he disagrees, is that what kind of separates Peep's play from other Mega Mans and why he sees more success to me is that he spent a lot of time optimizing how to flowchart after hits and how to turn that pellet pressure in mid range into pressure with other tools that are not super committal, right? So think about like the up air pressure or spaced aerial, stuff like that. So that's kind of like my opinion on Mega Man. It's like I understand the dynamics. How that works out, I think, is very hard to judge given the information that we have right now, which is very little. in my personal experience, I feel like, most of the times when I'm playing as Mega Man, I'm just not worried because I know eventually I get in, and then Mega Man is pretty easy to combo, and his disadvantage does have some limitations, like an up B without a hitbox, like his airspeed. So yeah, that's my general opinion on Mega Man. I feel like he has a lot of his dynamic works really well in terms of just playing the meta, but in terms of the risk reward, which is something that we're seeing, more and more being an important factor in today's meta, with Kazuya on the come up, Steve doing really well, even players switching off from Roy to Cloud like Cola, because in terms of risk reward, yes, Roy has good reward, but his risk is also way higher than a Cloud. So Mega Man plays one side of the meta really well, and another side of the meta it's to me a little bit up in the air. I think he's like a high tier. Where he is in the high tier, I don't know. But he's viable for sure. And one final thing that I think about Meta Knight, and this one I'm not entirely sure about, but from what I gather, he the matchups that he loses are not really like a specific archetype of characters, right? It's more so divided among like a zoner here, a rushdown there, a mid-range character there. So it's also a little bit harder for him to find a secondary that really like complements him really well. But on that topic, I'm actually curious, Peep, do you agree with that, or do you feel like I'm entirely wrong about that? I personally talked to Loading with this. I don't know if you know Loading. He's like a Mega Man player from the Netherlands. Yeah. And he basically said, yeah, dude, if a character has like really good reward of their neutral hits, they usually do pretty well, which can be, like Samus has that. Samus charge shots you and just, like deals 50 into a ledge trap. But Roy has the same. So yeah, I'd like to hear your opinion on that. Like how easy is it to find a character to complement Mega Man / do you think like at a top level, do you think that's necessary at all?
Okay, so you first mentioned like the mid-range and pellets and all that. And while I think pellets may have their merit, I've come to the conclusion recently that the opportunity cost of pellets is just a bit too much. If you look at my Riptide run or most other recent runs of mine, I'm like weaning myself off of pellets. I'm using them less and less. I'm relegating them as to like a tool used for either annoying the other guy specifically, if I know that they can be annoyed, or
right.
There may be some situations where like adding in a pellet along with some other movement can be more efficient.
Right. That's kind of what I was getting at, where it's more like the threat of the pellet and the control that it could provide is more valuable, and that is what you use to kind of like open up options in mid range. That's the way I look at it. Yeah. Okay.
I think that Mega Man is one of the best characters in the game.
Damn, that's a bold
not
statement.
through any one tool, but
going hard in the paint.
I think that Mega Man has the tools to attack on every, or pretty much every dimension that I can think of off the top of my head. So he has one of the best out of shield games in the game, because he has a Z-drop Metal Blade for a frame 4 option, usually about frame 5-ish. He's got frame 5 up smash that does high teens damage and kills. I said frame 5, I meant frame 8.
Okay, I was about to look that up.
He's got framing up smash. He's got frame 5 invulnerable kill move that also does high teens, like 20% damage and up tilt. So he's capable if you have the sufficient read as a Mega Man player. It's kind of like Joker, where they tend to underperform under most pilots. However, if you ask top players what is this character capable of, they'll tell you that the character is very good because of things that you don't see the common pilot of that character do. And so I think that Mega Man is a fantastic vehicle for player skill to shine. Most players, when they see Mega Man, they think a character that plays very well at long range and also plays well at mid range. And so if you ask what the average player who's not particularly familiar with the matchup, they're going to tell you, well, the first thing you need to do is you need to get up close to Mega Man. Except that's where Mega Man's most rewarding tools are. So he actually, he has elements of play and reward where he is advantaged toward no matter what you're wanting to do in the matchup. And so how those advantages are proportional is going to change by matchup, which is part of why it's so important to know his matchups on both sides. But the idea is that when you are playing Mega Man, will always have a way that you can play the character so that it takes advantage of some hole in your opponent's skills. So he also has one of the best vertical movements in the game. His short hop and full hops are both fairly low, and his fast fall is one of the best in the game. So it allows him to do a lot of unreactable movement where you just kind of have to guess. And then on top of that, he has both single hit and multi hit aerials. And if you're delaying for the multi hit, like the leaf shield, as he mentioned, like his short hop leaf shield is not reactable if you're in range for it. And then if you are delaying so that you can react better to not get caught by the leaf shield, then you're usually letting his -8 fair go ahead and get away. Now, granted, it's not as -8 if he's using it rising or anything, but because his fast fall is so good, you're usually not going to catch him floating when, say, a Lucina fair, if she uses a short hop fair that touches your shield, it's easier to go ahead and chase down her landing, whereas he's usually already landed and acting before you can even recognize it happen. So he just has a lot of tools that reward him for having those reads. On top of that, he also has some of the best frame data on block in his down air and up air, both of which I believe can be plus, if I remember correctly. And then on top of that, he also has like Z drop setups, which can be plus, are very fast, very rewarding. So theoretically,
destroy shields.
Yes,
like is that drop shield and you just destroy it? It's insane. Yeah.
He has a lot of unblockable shield stab setups because he has so many powerful multi hits that are already safe and already rewarding on hit. These super safe setups also kill if you try and challenge them. So you can't just ignore it like Orisha Sheik, where you just challenge her fairs, and worst case scenario, you eat a Sheik fair. If you try and challenge Mega Man up fair, worst case scenario, you die at like 90. So the like bad jump ins get punished. And then on top of that, he also is one of the best characters at playing position, in my opinion, for stage control. So this mostly comes down in his ability to use combination up air. So up air is one of the best zoning tools in the game, in my opinion. Specifically, how it relates to both ledge trapping, because you can use it to usually I will go ahead and digress a little bit. Usually there is a tension in your ledge options where you have multiple timing mix-ups on ledge jump. Ledge jump is not reactable. However, if your opponent is buffering ledge jump, the timing is going to be very set from the time they grab the ledge. It should be roughly frame 33, 34. If you put a hitbox there, it's going to hit the buffered ledge jump from the time they grab the ledge. So you can time it, consistently hit that. However, the counterplay for that, or one of the counterplays for that, is the opponent can simply just delay their jump by however many frames your aerial is active for, and then they just ledge jump through it anyways. And so you have ledge jump, and then you have delayed ledge jump, and you can't really react. So that's part of the reason why you'll see, for example, you'll see light double nair as Fox by the ledge, which is very fast, and it's very effective in that way. But the idea is the reason he's doing it twice is because he's not trying to react to the ledge jump. He's preemptively putting it out there so that more of the time is there. And then he's usually hitting it in tempo to, if the opponent tries to jump on reaction to him jumping, that he'll hit them. So sometimes you'll empty drift and then land with an air. So things like that. However, these things are usually countered for most characters, because if you are preemptively jumping, then that means you're not in position to land and also dash back to cover a roll. And so if you jump at the same time somebody rolls away, if you can't catch them with your drift on reaction, then they're going to get a ledge roll, and then they're going to reversal you, because now you're in the corner. And if you try to press your advantage, then usually you're going to be a little bit minus, and whatever they hit you with is going to put you off stage or just do whatever you didn't want in that position. In Mega Man's case, he can put out this up air, and because it's both a non-hurt box, so you can't really interact with it unless you have a reflector. And then even then, you can't usually interact with it or as a reflector if it is preemptive, because you have to jump up there first. So he can put out things like preemptive up airs to cover your ledge jump, and that enables him to focus on covering ledge get up and ledge roll, which you can cover both of on reaction at the same time. And so it takes off that burden on the Mega Man player to be able to play reactionary consistently. And then on top of that, because he has such powerful rewarding options, like I believe we remember seeing Peabnut do things like down smash or regrab at one point, and like that does huge amounts of damage, kills super early. He can always up tilt either as long as he can time it and react appropriately, which you can consistently up tilt both get up and ledge roll if you react fast enough and or read it. So he just has super rewarding setups. All or most of his stray hits convert into stage control because he can usually convert a projectile hit into a grab and a back throw. And usually, if you're DIing to avoid that, he gets things like double fair or back air, things like that. Just he has good carry combos that put the opponent into the corner, and he has ways of locking them down there, pressuring their shield. If you can't roll away from Mega Man and he can jump in with the down air, you usually have to just swing preemptively. But on top of that, in addition to his out of shield options, he also has a frame 4 back air, which gives him frame 7 multi-hit aerial that catches you out and is disjointed in the air. So he just has all these very powerful sword tools. So
you really are a Mega Man fan, dude. You've been talking about Mega Man for even. Dude, this is a Tony rant of epic proportions. Normally, it's like, we're 20 minutes into the episode, time to let Tony talk for about 10 minutes. But you just have stuff to say, man. This character is insane in your eyes. So let me ask you a question, Tony. What do you think is the cause of the discrepancy between your view of Mega Man and the actual place of Mega Man in the current meta?
Well, I mean, we just saw Mega Man make it to Grands at a pretty big tournament. So Peabnut getting second at Riptide, as Charles mentioned. However, other than that, I think it's just a skill issue. I'll just be honest. The some of the other top Mega Mans are less consistent. So you have players like Repo, Kameme, where they do play the character, but in Kameme's case, he usually plays other characters. In Repo's case, he's just not as consistent as a player to begin with. He tends to go for a lot greedier setups, commit to what he's doing, go for more reactable things. And so as the player skill increases, I think that their specific style of Mega Man, like pellet based, I think pellets are good as a conditioning tool and as a matchup check. However, just because of the way they work as a mechanic, they're usually not very safe on hit. Their risk reward is not great. And whenever you, like Peeb said, if you're using pellets, then you're usually not spacing out with your sword moves. You're not powering your character up by grabbing Metal Blade, which is essentially kind of like just gives you super Mega
Banana.
Man.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So
I get you. I also feel like the way you describe it, the character is very multifaceted, which means that by nature it's going to take longer to succeed, right? Because you need to know more about the game, know more about the matchups to actually get the most out of a character that's kind of jack of all trades like that. It's going to be harder than a character like Cloud, who kind of does a few things really, really well. So I definitely see where you're coming from. Yeah, it's interesting to hear that perspective. I haven't really heard it before.
I actually view Mega Man as similar to Steve. However, I think that Steve's most powerful tools are usually the easier ones, whereas Mega Man's most powerful tools are the more difficult ones. And
That's
so I think Mega Man is more rewarded for investing time and skill into the character than Steve is, proportionally. In Steve's case, in Steve's case, there's kind of a very slow rise on that because the character is capable of doing a lot theoretically, but you don't have to. And in Mega Man's case, I think you kind of do have to.
The baseline, the floor, the skill floor is a lot higher for Mega Man. That's what it comes down to. But the ceiling for both is absolute insanity. I agree. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Peanut, do you think that your performance at Riptide is a fluke, or do you expect to perform similarly going forward?
I have a lot of thoughts right now, but to immediately answer your question, it's apparent to me that I messed up so much at Riptide, but still got second, which is it's, how do I put this? I feel so great about the future because I could have made just a couple more adjustments and won Riptide, but additionally, there's just so much more for me to do with this character. What you talked about, Tony, earlier with skill expression, that's what I feel with Mega Man. That's why I've been playing this dude for 8 years now. We're coming up on 8 years. Smash for 3DS came out October 3rd, 2014, and I've been playing Mega Man since the first week of Smash for 3DS. if you had asked me where I thought Mega Man was in the meta or like how good I thought he was, normally I would say he's good enough. But with that epic rant that you just went on, I agree with like everything you said. Mega Man is great. He's capable of so much. He's also like a zoner in disguise, or like he's disguised as a zoner. He's not the kind of character where like you want to run to the other side of the stage all too often. You do want to be close to the other guy because that's where you can win tournaments, right? Like I got to second off of just like up tilting people a bunch, um, and metal blading out of shield and footstooling out of shield. Like Mega Man is so cool, just wonderful. I forget what your last question was, but my thoughts end there, I guess.
Well, specifically, what do you expect Mega Man to be doing in the near future? Like as a character, like what do you think are the strong points of Mega Man going forward for like this coming month, for example?
Mm-hmm. Going forward, I think there's still a lot of room for. So you mentioned like the difficulties of tech skill with Mega Man and like getting his most like getting the most out of him, and that's where a lot of my flaws came in that Riptide run, like failed execution usually. But there's also a lot that I can improve on in regards to my positioning and just player and character knowledge. But that's more of a me as a personal, well, more personal issues rather than character issues. Mega Man can, I think going forward, he may be able to like more consistently kill people at just like 60 off of like tons of different positions, whether it be ledge trapping or when they're in the air. Like all it takes is one good up air at like 0 and then continually up airing them until they hit like kill percent. I could potentially do that. Mega Man could potentially do that. Up air as a zoning tool, like you said, is incredible. And with it being like plus on shield as well, with me having the time to put out an up air and then if they like air dodge through it, I can like up tilt them. Stuff like that. It's sick trapping. It's broken. Metal Blade's broken as well. Just like getting free grabs on shield, which I didn't even show off much at my Riptide run, but that's something. That's something else.
And how does that work?
So Metal Blade hits multiple times. It's not a one-time hit like turnip or banana or something. It just continually, if you drop it at a certain height, it can just continually shred someone's shield, and you can grab them during that, and that's just a free grab. You are just stuck there. You cannot move. Stuff like that. Like I can't think of many characters that can get guaranteed like unblockable setups in this game.
It's a pretty unique characteristic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
And
the only other one is like what Shadow Flare hitting shield, then you grabbing, right? Like I guess other examples of something hitting a shield, and usually in most fighting games and most traditional fighters, if you are in block stun, you are immune to grab. But in Smash, Smash is unique in a sense where you can be in block stun and you can still get grabbed. So, yeah, I mean, obviously not a lot of characters can do it, but Mega Man being one of them is really crazy. And I mean, this
Yep.
is a very, very powerful tool.
especially since the way ultimate shield grabs work is there's usually a little bit of a lockout when you try to shield grab, and Mega Man also has a fast grab on top of that. So
Mhm.
if you can touch somebody's shield and it just be at frame 0 or even minus like 2 or minus 3, if you can grab and have a grab that fast, then you just win every single time. Like it doesn't even tech, it just grabs. There's MPG up in the Northeast.
He's good too.
How would you compare your play with MPG's?
MPG's is much more technical. He's willing to just continually out fast the opponent with things that not many people know about, like Mega Man tech that people don't know about, and they get flustered, and then he gets like free grabs off of that, or he gets like we have a tech called the Yoinky Sploinky, which is if you're not prepared for it, you just kind of die. You like explode at 60. It involves like footstool, Metal Blade, Z drop into like recatch it into like cancel the leaf shield, and then you hit them with like drag down back air. It's a sight to see, and there
The Yoinky
are
Sploinky.
yeah
Who
the
names
Yoinky
these?
Sploinky.
The Mega Man
Just a
hive mind. There's
Discord
just
poll.
like a single IQ cell that's going ham in the Discord.
I'm not certain who named it. I think it might be a Mega Man named it Jello, but regardless, Yoinky Sploinky is like MPG's signature move in my opinion, and that alongside other tech, like rush canceling, like bouncing over and over on rush to keep your movement like unpredictable and stuff like that, and like set up positions where you can like have multiple 2-frame attempts with down air and stuff like that. Um, it all comes together to just like you're gonna be frozen in place when you're fighting a Mega Man like MPG, like not knowing what's going on, and then that's how he takes advantage of you. Then he gets his Yoinky Splinks and whatnot.
He hits that Yoinky Sploinky, dude.
Go get
When
yoinked.
you least expect it.
What happened to you in bracket? I got Yoinky Sploinked, man. I don't know. I lost.
Yeah, that's man. It's crazy how much tech the character has, and I think what is the most interesting thing about the character is that so one, there's no other character in the game that really has tools like Mega Man. I think Pellet being one of the most standout tools. It's like so weird. It's kind of like these Falco lasers, but they don't have long range, but you can do multiple of them, and it's like 3 different types of moves. Right, it's your nair, your jab, your forward tilt. Right, so it's like it's very unique in that sense, but then it's not transcendent, right? I think we could all agree if it was transcendent, Mega Man would definitely be one of the best characters in the game, no contest, and it would be a lot more of a straightforward strategy. I think what holds Mega Man back in terms of like currently, right now, current results is something that Ramses was bringing up. Like there's really good characters in the game with very simple strategies, right? There's Roy, Fox, like characters that are just like, if I fall on top of you, like Fox, for example, if I fall on top of you with aerials and you don't have an answer, I will win. I will get free grabs. I will get free hits. Eventually, I win, right? So like the strategy and the win condition is very, very black and white, which like don't get me wrong, you still have to be a good player, right? You still have to outplay the player, and you just have these tools, but your strategy is very direct. Roy, get the nair, get the jazz by edge. I'm very strong at this, and I'm very weak at this. Where Mega Man, especially looking back at Smash 4, where a lot of Mega Man in Smash 4 was very pellet centric, and then you had like Crazy Punish Game, right? With Ultimate, I feel like what Pete was saying, just being more well rounded, it's not as straightforward as it was in Smash 4. And I've even talked with Peeb a good amount too, just talking about like pellets and stuff about like a year ago. Talking about pellets and really trying to decipher like the value of pellets. Like, should you really be pelleting in neutral? Because it's like what you get from it, what your opponent gets from just ramming into it with a meaty aerial. In my opinion, and I definitely don't know as much as people about the character, but like when I think of Mega Man, if Mega Man can pellet in a matchup and they don't have too many answers to the pellet itself, like the character struggles dealing with pellet because you have to have active hitboxes, right? To beat out pellet. If you don't have active, like if you have a Fox Nair or like a Fox Dash attack, like those are things that just slice through pellet and then like trample over it and hit Mega Man. And if you don't have that, and Mega Man can use pellets more in neutral to the point where it's like, oh, my win condition is keeping you out with like, if you can keep out a character with pellets, it's probably a good matchup because now you have a way more simple strategy, and it's like, oh, well, your character just struggles dealing with these tools. I don't know how many characters struggle with that because Ultimate's such a like I guess like a mashy game. I don't know how to like say it without being toxic, but like essentially hitting
High
buttons.
pace.
It's high paced. Dash is very strong, and there's a lot of strong hitboxes that lead into about 50 damage. Like that's a very standard top tier combo, right? Like, oh, I hit you with this move, I deal 50 damage. That's cool. On to the next, right? That's a pretty like standard top high tier kind of strategies, right? Where it's like, oh, here's my 3 moves that deal 50 damage on hit or whatnot. So I don't know how many matchups Mega Man can be like, oh, well, I can use pellets a lot in this matchup, right? And yeah, people like, what do you think? Is there matchups out there that are kind of like, okay, I can pellet them and pretty much GGs, and it's a very simplistic strategy because I feel like the harder matchups is
Ganondorf.
yeah, Ganon. Because look, I just feel like the harder matchups are like, oh shit, I like almost can't use pellets, and then you have to like
It
kind of
is,
figure out how
yeah.
to fight right with Mega Man against all these cracked out characters. Because I know I feel like Roy Fox would probably be like characters off the top of my head that are not so good for Mega Man, but I would love to hear what matchups are good for Mega Man and like if that correlates with how much you use pellet.
Okay, so pellets are. I mean, I guess theoretically you could just like time out again Ganondorf or something like that. But like you could also do that with Fox, right? You could just Fox laser and then like never get hit again potentially.
Right.
Mega Man, I do see like how Mega Man would be better at that strategy. But the principle in my mind is I I'm not really gonna get reward off of pellets. Um, like I will do 2% per pellet. That's whatever. A Fox player will get 2% off of a laser. That's whatever. We don't care. The point of the pellet is to set up for positions where I can actually take the stock.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I'm up against a character or player that's like really adept at fighting pellets, in which case I'll pellet less. But the the idea of pellets, they're just they're not all that they're cracked up to be. They're annoying, and that's like the best part about it. Um,
Okay.
so I'm not gonna pellet a Ganondorf to time, even if I could, because one, like all it takes is one mistake, and I'm gonna get Ganondorf nared. Like you mentioned earlier, pellets are not transcendent. You can beat them with hitboxes. If a Ganondorf nares at just the right time, just because I messed up once, I will have undone like the 100 to 200 plus damage in pellets. That all gets undone by me getting pushed off stage by one Ganon nair into edgeguard scenario. Like I prefer position over percentage, and that's why I don't believe in pellets as much anymore.
Got it. So it's
So
like it would never be a centric part of your strategy.
yeah.
Pellet, like because like Fox Laser is important for Fox. It's very important, especially for his bad matchups. But Fox Laser will never be the backbone of strategy. Whereas like maybe Melee Fox, I don't know. I guess that's a bad example, but like Brawl Falco laser camping is like
Oh yeah.
I can win off of this. This is the backbone of my strategy, and like you have to get past this to even fight me. And then when you get close eye illusion and rinse repeat or whatever, right? That is like a
Mhm.
core backbone strategy. Whereas like you're saying, no matter the matchup, pellets will never be the core backbone strategy because that's what Mega Man looked like in Smash 4, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Can I change the question a little bit? Because I feel like a lot of people, when they think about Mega Man, the first thing they think about is pallets, probably because they are a pretty big knowledge check. So to kind of like nuance the question a bit, what do you think is the essential strategy for Mega Man then?
I like that question. It's it's tough to answer because he is so flexible. You can play him in many different ways. You could play him as a pellet Mega Man. I don't
What do
believe in that.
you what do you think is the core strategy? Let's put it that way then.
For top level play in this current meta, like what
Yeah.
strat like because you're almost sounding like you're saying Mega Man's a kind of toolbox top tier, and I think
Mhm.
another correlation to that is Wolf. I think Wolf is a very toolbox top tier where it's like
Okay, but Wolf also has like a few tools that are just like super dominant. You know, like
true.
he can jump in with an air and like you like the main answer you have is shielding. You know what I mean? Or he has blaster, which is like like a lot of the better characters in this game. Like yes, you're not always like dominating the neutral, but even if you're not dominating the neutral, it's very easy for you to get into a position where you are dominating. And yes, you can say like Mega Man is a jack of all trades, but to me that sounds like I'm constantly playing around my opponent, which is not like a winning recipe, because then your opponent is deciding the flow of the pace, the flow of the information, the situation. Whereas when you talk about Mega Man, it's all about like positioning. Well, you need to have some sort of threat to enable your movement, and that threat is kind of like linked to your core strategy, and that's like that to me has always been pallets at its core. And I know pallets are not rewarding, but like you hit pallets like 20 times and eventually they're like, okay, well, I guess I'll play around pallets. And that's how I always thought, like that's how he sets up his pressure through the threat of pallets. And then of course you use it less as it gets less effective, but then the inherent threat of having the tool is still a factor. But if you say, well, I mean, it's not even an inherent threat at all, then I wonder what is so scary that allows you to do what you want to do?
Okay, so I have only recently thought about like the kind of threat that Mega Man can dish out. For the longest time, I just thought of Mega Man as like the kind of character that answers questions from the other guy rather than provide his own questions and threat, right?
I see.
And yeah. So like answers to threats would be like up air and out of shield, stuff like that. But the threat that Mega Man can provide is not actually from pellets, or at least, I mean, sure, pellets can provide a threat of 2%, but like the bigger threat is at mid range. He does have Metal Blade conversions, so you can get Metal Blade if you have it in hand. You can get it into back airs at kill percent if you're close enough to the other guy. Let's say within one roll distance, you can get potentially Metal Blade into up tilt, so we get kills at 60, 70, stuff like that. That's where our threat comes from. It's mostly Metal Blade. That's what I believe.
That makes sense.
In
so,
addition,
like at the ranges where you would set up pellets, you're better off using that distance that you've created to set up your Metal Blade. So, in that sense, the two tools kind of like directly oppose each other in the situations in which they would be useful, right? Like setting up Metal Blade versus setting up pellets.
Yeah. If you already have Metal Blade in hand, you could then opt to use pellets and whatnot to annoy the other guy. Provide that like, hey, what are you going to do about the pellets option?
Right.
Yeah. And then once they do come in, well, I have Metal Blade in hand. Then I have Great Outer Shield. Then I have Z Drop, Footstool, Yoinky, Sploinky, whatever.
The Yoink.
So and
what is
combine
the
that
threat
with-
that Mega Man provides? The Yoinky freaking Sploinky, dude.
Even though I didn't even use the Yoinky Sploinky, like you can see all the other options that Mega Man has at his disposal through like good positioning, allowing you to get like there was one stock on Zamba in Losers Finals where I literally did just up air him and like block him off from getting good positions from 0. Like I got an up air at 0, just up aired until I got him to the ledge, and then I just like double down aired him. Like the power of these like the threat of Metal Blade getting people to jump into up air, that's crazy. And there's also the Leaf Shield cancel, which, like I mentioned earlier, is just straight up a glitch that has gone unpatched. Thank the Lord, because with Metal Blade in hand, you can Leaf Shield and then cancel the Leaf Shield by tossing the Metal Blade upwards. And it's very weird. I don't know why it works.
Does it just disappear or does it get shot out?
It straight up disappears.
Yeah, it
Yep.
disappears. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just cancels the Leaf Blade with the item toss animation.
Okay.
And that's actually just one way to cancel it. There's two main ways. You can cancel the Leaf Shield if you have Metal Blade in hand, and by dashing and then tossing upwards. It's specifically dash followed by toss upwards. Really weird. Or if the Metal Blade is on the ground, you can Leaf Shield next to the Metal Blade, and then dash and pick up the Metal Blade, and that cancels the Leaf Shield. It just completely disappears. It is messed up, and what that does, like, it gets you next to someone with Metal Blade in hand.
Blade in hand. Oh my
Yeah.
god, that's grimy.
There are some characters even.
And then you
where,
get yoinked.
Yeah. There are some characters that are either tall enough or wide enough to where like you can hit them with the Leaf Shield while you have Metal Blade in hand, and you do the up toss to cancel the Leaf Shield, and that up toss actually hits the other guy, and then you can combo that up toss Metal Blade into dash up tilt, and they die. So it's a kill confirm off of that frame 9 Leaf Shield, Plus, plus you can you're confirming off of it. If they shield the leaf shield, then you can opt to just you can cancel and like retreat, or you can cancel and play RPS on their shield. If you see that the leaf shield is hitting the other person, you can opt for this combo. You can confirm into this upwards toss, kill them at 60 combo.
Damn, that's crazy.
I think that's interesting. I think it's interesting to look at Mega Man as a character that kind of lives and dies by his resource, Metal Blade, rather than all the tools surrounding Metal Blade. Because I feel like if you think about item characters, you think about Diddy, maybe even a character like Peach, or more of a setup character that takes a while to charge up, like Limit. And I think it's funny that you think this, because I think it fits the meta very well. Because right now, like, the best characters in the meta to me are characters that are good at waiting, right? So characters that get stronger by waiting, like a Cloud or a Diddy, or characters that are just like powerful from a waiting position, like a Mithra, who has like a really good dash attack, or a Steve who mines during waiting, or a Kazuya who says, "Oh, we're waiting, I'm going to be cornering you." So having a tool that punishes people for waiting, or a way to get stronger while waiting, like Metal Blade, I think I liked it a lot. Yeah, I think that really fits the current direction of the meta too.
Yeah,
makes sense.
I think
So-
Metal Blade. Oh, go ahead, Tony.
Go ahead, Charles.
I also think Metal Blade is also just really like a broken move, even out like when you look at Metal Blade, right? So let's compare Metal Blade to Wolf Blaster. I think Metal Blade is way better than Wolf Blaster, even
I
if you
agree.
exclude holding on to the Metal Blade. Like literally just shooting out the Metal Blade. If we compare shooting out the Metal Blade and shooting out the Blaster, the fact that you can throw it reverse. So like, I mean, you can be reverse with Wolf, right? But I think the crazy thing about Metal Blade is you don't have to be reverse it and you throw it backwards, right? So you can threat back air, right? And the thing about Mega Man too is this is something that I've been seeing a lot more Mega Mans do, is using back air as a drag down tool into things like up tilt or grab or whatever, right? So having that really fast multi hit that if you don't rise up with it and you kind of like short hop delay a little bit, then back air drag down, right? And you get crazy stuff. Forward air is also in terms of main horizontal spacing tools. Obviously, there's pellet, but then outside of pellet, things that have a little bit more umph, a little bit more priority, a little bit more return. Mega Man's mainly going to be using fair and bear, right? And then in conjunction with how he's positioning himself in the air or the ground, you could shoot the Metal Blade in like 16 different directions, or like pretty much Fox angles, right? I don't know how many actual directions there is, Peeb.
it's just 8.
It's 8. Okay. Eight different directions, right? So, but that it's crazy because you can jump and then like shoot it down like in a 45 downward and then combo off of it, right?
Yep.
And Blaster, you're not comboing off of Blaster. Blaster only shoots horizontally. It is transcendent. That's probably the biggest thing. I don't know. Is Metal Blade transcendent?
It is not.
That's what's not okay. That if Metal Blade was transcendent, this character would be like ultra fucked up. But like, so that's the one thing that Blaster has over that. But I would rather have all the other utility of being able to choose different directions, comboing off of it, and then even when you think past the throw, picking up the actual item, getting a better out of shield, getting unblockable setups and stuff like that. So yeah, I do agree with that in terms of the core should be around Metal Blade, and because you can also just throw it down to grab it as an item too, right? So it's like you can jump up, and if someone dashes back, be like, I can Metal Blade at you, or I can Metal Blade down, grab. Now I'm more powerful as a character, run into boxing, yada yada, right? So yeah, I completely agree. I think Metal Blade being the core part of the strategy, and the pellets are kind of just like a side course, or like a little bonus. I could tack on some damage, annoy them a little
Plan
bit,
B.
maybe like condition them to do something. But your main objective should be trying to hit them with Metal Blade or set up Metal Blade in hand. And I think, yeah, I like that way of thinking because it makes a lot of sense to what the character wants to do, right?
Is it still RNG whether the Metal Blade despawns when it hits the ground?
Yes, it is. So
Oh,
the first time you shoot it out, it will guaranteed touch the ground once, but every time after that, if you were to Z drop it and it touches the ground, there is a 25% chance that it just despawns. So that's a little unfortunate. I wish it had like a set amount of
Yeah.
times that it could
Like
touch
Diddy.
the ground. Yeah.
It would have been better. I won a set in Smash 4 because I got footstooled and it despawned after one loop, and I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm insane.
I didn't die at 0. Yeah. so unfortunate, but good to hear.
Peanut. So going forward, what would you recommend to people who are wanting to get better against Mega Man? Like, what do you think they should be doing?
Like your homework, probably, right? I just feel like there's so many tricks. That's the first thing that comes to mind, at least, because like you can look at Mega Man and kind of like, okay, you're trying to zone me. You have like these crazy conversions and stuff, but the character feels like he has so many tricks. Like, you know what I mean? If you're not ready for it, then you just get jammed. But I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
what do you think, Phoebe?
Because Mega Man is so flexible, such a toolbox character, there are like tons of different things that you'll need to look out for, both on like a matchup basis and a player basis. So like, if your character, for whatever reason, does not care to get up aired, then you can choose to jump in more, and that'll beat me if I pellet. That'll beat me if I'm unprepared. Otherwise, or if there are Mega Man players that you know that don't up air, just period, then you can just jump in on them and whatnot. So you do need to do your studying, both on the player, the Mega Man player, and what your character would, which poison you would prefer. So, um, do you prefer to face me horizontally, where I can like on reaction to you jumping, if you're like a slow faller, I can frame 4 back air you, or like if you're gonna jump in on me immediately, I could have my shield up and then footstool you out of shield with either leaf shield, by the way, which is always gonna if I don't have metal blade in hand, I always have footstool leaf shield, which is just 20 damage. Um, Once you are at kill percent, then I can have my metal blade in hand, footstool Z drop into up tilt, stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay, just I
Yeah,
guess kind
makes
of
sense.
navigating around the biggest punches, right? Like towards the later part of the game, and how you want to like get in on Mega Man, I guess. How you want to
Mhm.
navigate through the neutral. I'm very curious what you think about Mega Man in terms of matchups. Like, what do you think are the good top tier matchups? What do you think are the bad top tier matchups? I know when we talked about a year ago, you were struggling a lot with Roy. Do you still feel like Roy is one of those characters that give you trouble? And you know, some other top tier matchups that are more on like the harder side for you.
I've come to the conclusion that it's not just Roy, it's like the person driving Roy. Because like I'll have good matchups versus certain players, but not others, even though they both play Roy. Um, I think that I, as a player, may lose more to people who have like a rhythm of like um, continually doing something. So like I've lost to Myron recently, who's like constantly doing something. I lost to Tilde in Grands of Riptide, who's constantly doing something. Um, I've lost to Cola, who um, is always doing something. But I'll beat Roys who are like more passive, um, and they allow me the time to like set up, time to prepare, do stuff like that. My goal um, is to be more well-rounded as a player and be able to beat the people that are always on. Um, and I don't know if Tony has an opinion on like if that's true or not. Like my observation is true. That's what I've observed in like the last week or so. It makes sense to me. If you look at my Suarez set that went game 5 at Riptide, and he seems to be the player that's like always on, always doing something. So that was very close as well. So that's why I believe that opinion. Um, and I guess Roy and other matchups, I feel okay about Roy. Uh, when you ask me about Mega Man matchups, I'm always gonna just have like a very simple answer for you, um, except for there where I talked more about player stuff. But I guess in general, Mega Man just like he's fine against pretty much everyone. Like he's gonna have some slightly bad matchups, but are still doable. Like things that I can list off are like Pikachu, Palutena, Wolf. Um, but he has some pretty good matchups here and there. Like I think he does well versus R.O.B. I think he does well versus Diddy. I think he does well versus I'm blanking right now. If you were to give me like a here, I will Google a picture of the ultimate roster.
There you go. That's how you do it.
Aegis? How's Aegis? That sounds rough.
So the first time I played Aegis or against Aegis in bracket was against Cosmos, and I won.
Mm-hmm.
So statistically speaking, Mega Man does well.
100% win rate. It's a 100-0 matchup.
Hardest Aegis matchup.
That was an off tourney for Cosmos, so
Right.
we can't expect that to be the case going forward. But
I do imagine
Joker as well, like or
right.
Leo's Joker specifically.
The two biggest things you bring up is kind of like setting up Metal Blade, spacing with aerials, and out of shield, and kind of like having a rotation of those, you know, three options and applying them wherever necessary. And it sounds like fast sword characters can do well against the dynamic. That's why I asked about Aegis specifically, because, you know, good burst range to rush down if you set up, can outspace you if you're trying to space, and can outspace your shield as well. I mean, unless you're turned around, of course. But I feel like the way Mega Man functions, there's a lot that you can do, like you kind of said yourself. There's a lot that you can do on a player level to compensate for those, right? Like spacing your shield differently, feinting, setting up to instead bait them in. And in that vein, I had a question, which is, if you get stuck with, for example, Roy, like we talked about before, are there like other Mega Mans that you turn to, or are these developments that we're talking about, are they entire like things that you kind of like came up with based on your own experiences?
So I will look at other Mega Man gameplay to like prepare for certain matchups, whether it be the character or the player. But there aren't many to begin with. There aren't many other Mega Men, and when I do look at other Mega Men, I will take some things of their gameplay and try to add it into mine if I think it's good. But otherwise, when I look at other Mega Men, I'm just trying to see like what got them killed here. What will I need to avoid in order to not get schmixed by this Roy or whatever? So I haven't seen a Mega Man that can beat like Cola, for instance. So I can't really look to other Mega Men for that. I would have to find the answer myself.
Are there conceptual ideas that you feel like other Mega Mans are applying better than you at like a high level?
I want to have better tech skill, and MPG has that. When it comes to the cancels or whatever other shenanigans he can come up with, that's the main thing that comes to mind.
That makes sense. I think that's a good answer. Yeah, that it's very underrated. Just being good technically. I feel like you know who I really respect in terms of technical skill, Tweak, because Tweak he doesn't drop anything. Mm-hmm. You know, and I feel like that type of tech skill is super underrated. But because people look at Void and they're like, "Yo, Void, he's doing the craziest thing," and like, you know, perfectly spacing, technical frame perfect tricks, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, and like. I admire that as well, but I think the Tweak level of tech skill where you just like don't mess anything up and you space well, you drift well, you fast fall well, I think that really is an invisible skill almost. So having that as a goal, I think that sounds good. I think it fits. Nice.
Mm-hmm. To answer the matchup questions from earlier, so I'm looking at the roster now. I see Wario. I think Mega Man does well versus Wario. Snake players famously say that Mega Man is like usually their worst matchup. They usually agree on it. I see Pokemon Trainer. Pokemon Trainer players believe Mega Man to be a bad matchup usually as well.
I agree.
Let's see. Joker. Mega Man does well versus Joker. Famously, MKLeo lost to Mars's Pocket Joker. I believe
Pocket Mega Man.
Pocket Mega Man. And then Kameme. Kameme beat
Kameme,
Leo at Evo. Put him in the losers. Leo won.
Kameme was also like one of the first players to like apply good Arsene counterplay, and then it's like, well, Arsene's good, but he has to get through Mega Man's wall, which makes it a lot less potent. So yeah, it's one of those cases in which it's not just the 2%, but it's also the time that you win, which is kind of like the deciding factor against something like Arsene or a Monado Art or a Cloud Limit. So yeah, I mean, makes sense. Sonic is good too, right?
Sonic, unless the player you're up against is Sonic's, yes, I would say it's a good matchup. Okay. But the X factor that Mega Man has of like having that ability to have beaten the best player in a game multiple times is like pretty good. Like he has wins on Leo twice from 2 different people, so that's great. And also we can't talk about matchups without talking about the best character in the game, statistically speaking, Steve. I think I'm glad that I was able to show what that matchup can look like for Mega Man at Riptide.
That was really fun to watch, by the way. Like like
Mhm.
seeing your counterplay to Steve and like what Mega Man brings to the table against Steve specifically. I was like, oh, this is really cool.
It was
a literal
surgical.
clinic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was clean.
And rewatching that set, there's like still so much more I could have done. But Mega Man seems to have some great tools versus Minecart, has some great tools versus blocks, has some great tools versus evading Steve. I think theoretically we could take huge advantage of Steve's bad mobility, and we could do what Charles may have suggested earlier, where like I could get up a stock and then just like camp
Leave.
Steve forever. Yeah, I think
just leave.
that might be
I'm
something that
not
happens in the
interacting.
future. Yeah. So to answer Tony's question from earlier, something that could happen in the future: camping, just rush camping with our good boy Rush. That's the name
I
of our
saw
dog.
some clips of like the rush re-jumps as well, and how it becomes its own mix-up where you can feint drifting towards rush, and then if they try to intercept you, punish them for it. It looked kind of toxic. I think in general that move is insane. I had a student the other day who showed me a VOD where they were getting ledge trapped, and he was just like, "All right, I'll just ledge drop and then rush."
So
Yeah,
broken.
and I'm just like, dude, you literally have a broken extra jump because he's fully actionable, has another double jump, has an air dodge, and just stuff like that. I feel like the character has so much potential because on paper the mobility is not quite there, but then vertically it's insane, and then the vertical movement opens up more horizontal movement. You know?
Yeah, and Mega Man does have good enough airspeed to really take advantage of that horizontal, or sorry, that huge boost, that jump that he gets from our dog Rush. Mega Man has like top 15 airspeed or something like that, and like aerial acceleration comparable to Wario. You know how he can move left and right super freely? Mega Man has that
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Nice.
So he can keep it ambiguous in the air, which is great.
Now, how does he do against like the FGC characters and Min Min? I'm not sure if you've played Zurzel since he's in your region, but I think he's the best Min Min in the Southeast right now.
I have not played Zurzel, and I have been thinking about that matchup, that Min Min Mega Man matchup, and I've been finding some answers for it. I remember watching the Min Min trailer and thinking, this is a bad matchup for Mega Man. And that has held up, it seems, according to other Mega Men that I've talked with. But I'm starting to think it can be okay because we have some powerful advantages once we do get hits, and we do have ways of getting in as well on Min Min. So that
Mega Man
seems
is a Shoto.
Mega Man. He does have a punch. He does have a Hadoken. He does have a Tatsu as well. Dash attack.
Funny, Mega Man is not. Mega Man is not a Shoto. He's not on the Shoto spectrum. He's not on the Shoto spectrum. He does not win the Shoto spectrum, dude. You got to win up close for free to be a Shoto.
And
I do win up close.
But not for free. But not for free.
Metal Blade.
With Metal Blade, yes. With Metal Blade, you become a Shoto.
I'm a Shoto with an item that's broken.
Yeah. Your item turns you into a Shoto.
Exactly.
As for the FGC matchup, I've had the pleasure of just playing good ones. Jazzo, Vendetta. They historically have good records on me. The last time I played one of them, though, was Jazzo at CEO, and I did win. I think the matchup should be in Mega Man's favor. It's just up to me to prove it.
Nice.
It looks like one of those matchups in which it's kind of hard to set up the situations you want because whereas usually you're well-rounded, the Shotos are so overwhelming in their good situations that it's hard to kind of like play around them, you know? Whereas other characters, they might not be that overwhelming, so you can just kind of like dance around their weaknesses, dance around their strengths and play into their weaknesses. Shotos are so extreme that if you're wrong once, they just like punish you so hard. So I can see that being rough, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we'll go around the horn real quick, just some closing thoughts. But I guess I got like two kind of blast from the past things I was thinking about. Do you guys remember when there was the first build of the Switch Ultimate where you could do two pellets and combo into Leaf Shield? You guys remember that? And then Yeti. Oh, that's another. Does Yeti play still? Yeti was a very good Mega Man player. I don't know if Yeti's still active or not.
Yeti seems to be a low-key individual. I think he will attend occasionally in his region, which I believe is
Oh.
Minnesota,
Yep.
under another name, like Casimir is what he goes by now, I think.
Okay.
But
Not to be mistaken for Kashmir,
right.
yes.
Yeah.
who is now Sean.
Yeah, Sean.
Who is now
Yeah.
Sean? Yeah.
When I discovered that, I popped off. I was like, wait, Kashmir and Sean are the same people? Holy moly. He was, yeah. That makes sense. It made a lot of sense.
I love watching.
He was
that.
insane. Yeah.
And
So-
Charles, that broken combo, that like pellet cancel that you mentioned, that was a glitch that was patched in like the first patch.
Yep.
Mega Man would be just the best character uncontested.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think with that specific exploit, Mega Man would be one of the best characters in the game for free because then pellets have damage output. You're not taking 2 damage. You're taking 20.
22,
you get hit.
24.
24,
you
right?
can-
Because one pellet, 2
you would be
pellet.
able to kill confirm off of pellets.
Oh my god, are you serious?
Also,
Jeez.
you could wave dash out of pellets.
Wow, this character
Yeah.
was the best.
Okay.
In the first build, we just didn't know.
When he was glitchy, yeah.
Yeah,
Man.
that's crazy. And
No,
then,
he's still glitchy.
Still glitchy.
Well, right,
Yep.
right.
He
yeah,
is
but
still glitchy, but it's on a different level. He used to be melee glitchy, now he's brawl glitchy. You know, it's different.
There's definitely different levels to it. God, what was the other thing I was gonna bring up? Because it was definitely the glitch. Oh, and then Yeti, yeah, because Yeti got, I believe, like 9th at Genesis 6, which was like the first major or whatnot. So, yeah, Mega Man having a ton of history, even with patches too. This character was literally just broken in a lot of different ways, but kind of equalized. So, but cool, but still cool to see Mega Man still like thriving in the meta, especially as of recently. But yeah, I guess Ramses, do you want to go next?
I don't have much more to add. I think it was a really interesting conversation. I think to me, the most interesting thing that came up is kind of like the traditional interpretation of Mega Man as like a zoner, which I don't agree with. I think he's more of like a mid-range character through his use of pellets. But the ways that he can play mid-range without pellets, like for example, just his auto shield power, his sword normals, his ability to set up a stronger situation quite easily and have mix-ups from there. Plus just like Peep said, all the depth and variability in rush camping, just using rush in general, the up air pressure, which leads into insane juggles that are kind of like in a way like the up air is similar to Game & Watch up air,
Yep.
who we all know, like we've seen Meister work with Game & Watch juggles, and they're like some of the best juggles in the game. So in a lot of ways, why does Mega Man do something similar? So yeah, I think just changing that perspective, I think it's just very interesting to me. Yeah, so thanks Peep. I appreciate you coming on and blessing us with your knowledge. It's very interesting, very obvious that you thought a lot about this character. Yeah, looking forward to seeing more in the future. I really don't have much to add.
Yeah, happy to talk with you guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Did you have any closing statements, Tony?
Well, I was just gonna say, to sum it up with mild hyperbole, my concept of Mega Man personally is that he's what most people think of Mega Man, and then on top of that, he has Game Watch's up air juggle game, like Ramses said, but he also has a better out of shield game than Game & Watch once he's powered up, because it also kills at Game & Watch up smash %. And then on top of that, he also has some of the best out of shield game in general for when he doesn't have the super version. And then on top of that, he also has fantastic vertical or horizontal zoning. Like the pellets aren't transcendent, and they probably would be better if they were. But just being hurt boxes still allows him to do things like put out otherwise, or like pellets to eat otherwise safe attacks that are really slow, like Eichner, things like that, where it can just stall them out and then let him use it. And then he can use it essentially as like a block projectile from Steve.
Mm-hmm.
So just things like that. His ability to just be super mobile, super dynamic as a character just makes me feel like personally the character is always going to be able to develop further than his pilots will be able to push him. So I also think that he as a character has a lot of theoretical things, usually involving Metal Blade, like Z drop loops. So he has like Z drop back air, things like where it'll just loop for a while and then he can finish it with up tilt. So you're talking about a frame 4 40 damage out of shield option. It's just pretty good. He
arguably pretty good.
Yeah. he has
it can
like
despawn after one loop, Tony. It's
sometimes.
RNG.
Yeah. So he has like the
20 to
Z drop
40.
aerial base that we're starting to see more from like the R.O.Bs and the Ditties, where they use Z drop aerials, and that's very powerful. But the difference there is that usually Ditties aerials are not disjointed, and then R.O.B's aerials are very slow. And then Mega Man has disjointed fast aerials with his Z drop, where if you try to overshoot to catch him on his retreats with his disjointed aerials, then he has a frame 4 kill move out of shield. So there's just all these powerful dynamics that work very synergistically, which is why I think so highly of the character. But to answer Peeb's question earlier on my perspective of his tempo plays, I don't think we mentioned it, but he also went game 5 with Light as Mega Man, and I think at the time Fox was considered one of Mega Man's worst matchups, and that's pretty much the textbook of always doing things. He's the most always doing things player on the planet, in my opinion. So his as fast as Light plays, if Peabnut is able to keep up with Mega Man, I think that Mega Man isn't going to run into places in the meta where he just can't keep up as that pace. So I think there's just not a position where Mega Man is incapable of countering it. So like Peabnut said, the character is a very proactive character that can ask the questions, and he's also good at answering other players' questions. And it's up to him whether he wants to go for one or the other. So his A plans and B plans are just more dynamic than almost any other character. So like the angles that he can just attack the player and also the matchup are just, I think the character's very dynamic, and I hope more people do pick up the character going in. I have very high hopes for both the character and Peabnut in particular. Huge Peabnut fan, as is everyone
Same.
who is down here.
Huge.
And so
Huge Tony fan over here.
Hey, let's go, Tony.
And also on that note, it's my understanding, Peeb, I believe you have a Metafy coming up?
Yes. So I've set up the profile. I believe it has to go live, aka I think the people behind Metafy have to they would do that themselves. I finished up all of my profile requirements and stuff today, so it'll be active soon, I believe.
Nice. Well, check out
Shit.
Peeb on Metafy. Let's go.
For sure.
Yeah. So I did remember the last thing I wanted to say. I think it's crazy that when Mars brought out Mega Man, everyone was just like, "Oh, this is just a good player playing Mega Man," like yada yada. But like the more we kind of talked throughout this conversation, the way Mars was playing Mega Man is kind of more, you know what I mean? Like Mars didn't really use pellets that much, and he really just tried to box a lot with Mega Man. And I don't know how much he set up Metal Blade. He's probably not a huge like Metal Blade nerd, but in terms of just like abusing
Are you a Metal Blade nerd?
Well, you know what I'm saying? Like just knowing everything.
It sounds cool.
Yeah, like just knowing everything with Metal Blade. It's such a complex move, right? Like I don't know half the shit you can do with Metal Blade. That move is very complicated and it's very powerful and it has a lot of options, right? So the way Mars used it was probably very straightforward and simplistic, right? But was just a very good player, but is very, I will say, someone that's always doing something, that's Mars, right? And like when we're talking about these kinds of topics, it's like we're talking about pacing, right? Essentially, like Light, Cola, these guys, they play at a very fast pace and they play with the fastest characters in the game. That's why they gravitate towards those characters, because they want to overwhelm you with how fast they're moving the game, right? But a player like Mars probably found success with Mega Man is because his sense of pacing, right, like was already fast. So he was playing a fast-paced boxing Mega Man without the tech, essentially, right? And found crazy success with it. I mean, it was very temporary, and we only saw one W on MKLeo, but that's MKLeo. Like that, a W on
insane.
MKLeo
Yeah,
is crazy, especially back then too, right? And even now, I mean, just if you're able to get a double on Leo, that's still a huge deal. I still hold Leo to number one in the world. So, I mean, just pretty the history of Mega Man is just very interesting because I feel like a lot of people would view Mars's Mega Man as kind of just like an oversight, but after listening to these conversations, it kind of makes sense. Like, wow, a player that has really high pacing, because that's Peep said that's the thing he's working on right now, is he's trying to keep up with pacing with players that have faster pacing than him and that play characters that are faster pacing than Mega Man too, right? So I think that's a very huge wall to get over. But yeah, Pete, did you have any closing words or closing thoughts?
Mega Man is awesome. I play him because he's awesome. I hope to get better with him to show him how awesome he is to the world. And I think I'm in a great position to do so because of the help that I get from people and just like where I live. Like I have great.
Your region's strong, or that
Yeah.
whole area, right? The southeast,
Yep, I am in
U.S.
South Carolina. I can make the drive to Georgia. That's 2 hours. I can make the drive to North Carolina. That's an hour to up to like 3 if I want. And flights to like Florida are gonna be cheap. Flights to
Maryland
New
or
England,
tri-state, yeah.
yep, are gonna be
Yeah,
cheap.
yeah.
So I'm lucky in that regard as well. Um, I'm gonna continue to do my best.
All right, sick.
Luck.
Let's go. Hit him with the yoink
Yoinky
the
Sploinky.
yoinky sploinky. All right, watch out.
Hit him.
Peeve's gonna learn the yoinky sploinky, and you're all fucked. All right, well.
He's gonna yoink your sploink.
Well, that was a really good topic. I love talking about characters with character specialists like Peep here. So hope you guys enjoyed the content. I hope you guys learned about more about this awesome game, and make sure to give us all a follow and like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, class dismissed.